Hello, and welcome to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Each week, we set the table for a discussion about recipes and stories from the authors of The Joy of Cooking, Kitchen Victories, and Misadventures, and most importantly, what we are cooking and eating right now. We're glad you've joined us at the table today. I'm Shannon Larson, home cook, ardent Joy of Cooking user and fan, and radish enthusiast.
I'm Megan Scott, co-author of the 2019 edition of The Joy of Cooking. I'm a food editor by day and avoider of dish duty by night, but I make a mean cherry pie.
I am John Becker, fourth-generation co-author and steward of The Joy of Cooking, America's oldest family-run cookbook. I make breakfast, wash dishes, and try not to sweat the small stuff.
But you're not that good at not sweating the small stuff,
Yeah,
are you?
Terrible at that.
Maybe I should I not say that?
No, it's fine. You can say that.
I shell beans.
You
He's
do.
He's working on it.
Yeah, you do shell beans. Yeah. We did some of that this week, actually. We bought some cranberry beans at the farmer's market.
They're so pretty.
Yeah, they're so pretty. They're also like super nostalgic for me because I grew up eating them. Like my family, my grandparents were farmers and they grew cranberry beans, but my grandmother called them October beans. I guess because they're already in October-ish.
Like spooky, scary beans.
Yeah.
Is pretty much what you should call them.
Yeah. So yeah, that is an activity. Shelling those beans is an activity I could do for hours and hours and hours, and I just find it so satisfying.
Do you just like listen to music and drink tea?
Yeah,
Or...
just listen to music, hang out on the back patio. Yeah, and it just reminds me of like being with my grandparents and my family and shelling beans and just hanging out.
The first time I met your great-grandmother, she just said, "Come on over, sit down, and help out with shelling these beans."
Yeah, she was like, "Get to work."
They weren't October beans. There was like
Oh yeah, I think
string
maybe we were
beans.
snapping string beans or
That's it.
something.
Spring
Yeah.
beans.
Yeah.
Something less spooky, scary.
Yeah, exactly. What about you? What have you done this week?
I phoned it in a little bit this week. Honestly, my family's like dealing with hurricane stuff and potential hurricane stuff. So it's been a freezer heavy meal week for us, but IKEA meatballs. We get a bag of those every single time we go to IKEA, which is not very often. And those have come in handy. So
How do you serve them?
anyway, like we actually made Swedish meatballs last night. So I did homemade gravy, but with like the lack of meatball prep, which is nice.
Yeah, that's really nice.
And mashed potatoes and homemade raspberry jam. Perfect.
Perfect. Yum.
But we did a lot of good stuff. And we're also like harvesting things from our garden. And I'm thinking of like how many green tomatoes we have currently and how we're going to ripen them indoors. That's kind of that's next week's project.
Okay.
So
I've definitely seen some stuff lately about hanging, like trying to cut them
That's what I've
off with
seen.
some of the stems and
Yeah.
then hanging them up and then trying to ripen them that way.
also would look pretty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let me know how that goes.
I'm going to try it.
Cool. Anything you'd like to share with the table?
Well, yeah, I think that at the end of the last episode, I said that I was going to be making some chilies rellenos. I'm
Rellenos.
going to mess that up every time. Yeah, so
And you did.
finally followed through on that like last night. It took a long time. The Big Jim chilies, they were just sitting in the refrigerator for just making me feel bad for a while. But
Wait, what are Big Jim?
they're a type of New Mexico chili that, well, they're big, and I guess like compared to other ones, they just have a very thick flesh. So they're really good for stuffing because of that, because they're pretty sturdy. Because like the process of like charring and roasting, it really, especially with like thin. I mean, I'm thinking specifically of poblanos. I hate charring and peeling poblanos because I'm always tearing holes in them. But yeah, the Big Jims are good that way.
And not super spicy.
And not very spicy.
Yeah.
In an attempt to kind of like use the Big Jims before I did the chilies rellenos, I actually did. I was like, for the scramble, I just want to quickly roast one of the Big Jims just to put into the scramble for breakfast, because I do breakfast, as you may know. And I actually found a pretty good way that saved. I think I charred and steamed and peeled like one of those chilies in like 5 minutes. But yeah, put it on one of the burners on like medium high, maybe high, And at the same time, I used a blowtorch because we have we have a blowtorch, and it doesn't get used very often. So, but for things like this, it's pretty useful. And then instead of like covering it, I was like, I don't have time for that. I'm just going to throw it in the microwave, and did that for like a minute and change. And it worked really well. The peeling was like a little bit harder than normal, but like the flesh was like super intact, which is more than I can say for the like charring method I used for the chilies rellenos.
Yeah, that was a really good idea to throw it in the microwave to get it to kind of steam it.
I thought so.
Write that down.
I'm jotting
Okay,
it down right now.
writing it down.
I would love to welcome our guest to this week's podcast, Heather Arndt-Anderson. She is an award-winning food writer and the author of 4 books on culinary history. She is the producer of OPB's Super Abundant newsletter. OPB is Oregon Public Broadcasting, for those of you who don't live in Oregon. Her background in plant ecology and soil science gives her a unique perspective on the foods Oregon does best, and her love of cooking spans decades. Whether it's working in the school cafeteria, fermenting quince vinegar in her urban farmstead, finding new ways to use up a jar of Thai crab paste, or foraging stinging nettles in swampy Johnson Creek floodplains, food is her jam. She also makes pretty good jam. She was also a recipe tester for the 2019 Joy of Cooking, and she is an Emmy Award winner, which is a pretty big deal.
It's huge.
Welcome to the podcast, Heather.
Thanks. Thank you. It's so funny to finish with the Emmy thing 'cause it's pretty recent, but working on the Joy of Cooking, it feels like a much bigger accomplishment to me because I'm such a simp. But
I love that.
I've always loved the book, and yeah, it was just such an honor to be able to be part of its legacy in some way.
It was very fun to work with you on that because I loved it because you're such an experienced cook, and yet still a home cook at heart, that I feel like you were able to ask the right questions and troubleshoot things, which is super, super helpful because it wasn't just like getting feedback like, oh, this is terrible. It was like, here's how you could improve this recipe. So I really appreciated that.
I try to treat cooking and recipe testing the same way I would any other kind of like lab science. Basically, you have to take notes. You have to use descriptive language. You can't just say this sucks or this is bad. Like, what's bad about it? And and so yeah, it was just really fun to be able to kind of pry into the details and the nuts and bolts of these recipes. And a lot of the recipes are ones I never would have tried if I hadn't been like put to the task of testing them. Like,
yeah, didn't you test some like wild game recipes?
I did, but I do cook quite a bit of game just because I was also doing recipes for an exotic meat and game purveyor in town, and grew up eating venison and stuff. But there was one, the tripe I never would have cooked, and I ended up offloading it to this friend of mine. She's Singaporean but grew up in Hong Kong, and so she loves tripe, and she like came over and brought me all this Stumptown coffee.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
good trade.
like, really good trade. And then there was this hamburger casserole that was just wonderful, and it's so kitschy. It kind of tastes like a cheeseburger, but it looks kind of like the kind of recipe you would see mocked on one of those like retro food Instagram accounts. It had the bread shingles, the shingled bread.
Love that.
It
I
was
think it's
so
sweet.
cute.
It's a wonderful presentation. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it looks very, very charming when you make it.
It also inspired me to make other kind of casseroles like that. Like I made a chili dog casserole and shingled the buns.
That's awesome.
Just use regular hot dog buns, but cut them into bite-sized pieces. And yeah, it was great. It was like, yeah, directly inspired by that recipe.
Well, before we set the table, have you cooked anything or tasted anything that you'd like to share this week?
Oh, yeah. I had a really busy week. I made a huge batch of fig and white, like kind of golden plum sweet and sour sauce and canned it. So I made like 9.5 pints of that. I made sopes for the newsletter, so that was really fun. Working with masa is so like it's like a sensory experience that you would give to a child with special needs almost. It's like it is so therapeutic to touch this like warm, soft
Play-Doh, like,
yes.
but it being warm is like a bonus.
And it's scented, which it smells like sweet corn. So it's the best.
Were you working with fresh masa?
No, I got the Hacienda masa harina.
Nice.
Yeah, the red corn one. It's really, really fragrant. So easy to work with. Yeah, it doesn't really need anything but 1-to-1 water. I used some Korean chilies and Korean zucchini from the garden, actually, in that the soap, and some beans that I grew. I grow cranberry beans also because they're really pretty. When they're still in the shell, you can, I think, eat them if you string. You don't have to string them, but you like run them through one of those like bean slicers, and so you can eat it as a fresh bean or as a shelling bean.
What's a bean slicer?
Slicer. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So do you remember on the old school vegetable peelers, the ones that are just long and skinny, and then they have like one end is a vegetable peeler blade, and the other end has this like little kind of square with like 3 little blades kind of jammed in it?
I don't remember. I remember my mom's vegetable peeler, but I don't think it had that end to it.
This one was probably from like the 60s. It was really old, and back when things really lasted. But yeah, so you like shove the bean through and then pull it out, and it Frenches it for you.
That's cool.
Why are we not using this?
I know. Oh, there's a picture of one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, we need to get one.
Yeah, I know one.
We're moving on to the Set the Table segment where we taste something delicious and talk about it. And it's usually related to our weekly theme. And this week's theme is pie. So we are tasting a lemon chess pie that I made today. So it's very much a classic like chess pie, just with lemon juice and lemon zest added as a really pretty sunny color thanks to all the egg yolks. So yeah, let's pass the pie and try it.
I love the Joy of Cooking's chess pie, and I am going to stop blowing sunny weather up your ass, I promise. But the lemon chess pie and the chocolate chess pie recipe are probably the 2 most common pies I make. They're just so good, and I have a lot of eggs right now, and so it would be a good time to make one.
Yeah, the chocolate one is my favorite ever, and I always make it at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I like to put a little bit of cornmeal in the custard just for a little bit of texture.
What is a chess pie? Like, what makes a chess pie a chess pie?
A chess pie, it is not a custard pie in the traditional sense. It does have eggs, and it does have some dairy. This recipe has only a 1/3 cup of cream and then a 1/3 cup of lemon juice, egg yolks, and egg. But I feel like what really makes a chess pie is the inclusion of a little cornmeal and vinegar. Mm-hmm. I did not use vinegar in this one just because it has so much lemon juice in it. I figured it wasn't necessary. But usually you'll see a little vinegar, like a tablespoon of vinegar, and then maybe a tablespoon or 2 of cornmeal in it.
Okay.
It's a pretty classic Southern pie. I ate them a lot growing up. But yeah, they're just really simple and delicious. You can make them with, I love chess pie so much because I almost always have all the stuff to make it. It basically just needs pantry ingredients and then a little dairy. You can use buttermilk instead of cream. It's just really versatile, and you can make them any flavor.
It's like a pantry pie.
It's in the sugar pie family of pies, isn't it? Like shaker pies and I think
or like
pecan
transparent pie. Yeah, pecan pie. Mm-hmm. It's like if the pecan pie filling, that good stuff below the pecans, were just a whole pie.
Mm-hmm. I bet it'd be really good with apple cider too. Have that nice tart, bright apple flavor.
So I'm struggling a little with my pie crust right now. I think the pie tastes good, but I've been having this issue where my pie crust just leaks butter in the oven, and I am using a recipe I've used many times successfully. In fact, I used to use it when I had a little baking business and made pies every week, and they always turned out great. And lately, for some reason, I think I'm just not in practice enough. I think I just need to make more pie.
More pie for your friends?
Did you switch? Did you switch butter brands?
Oh, yeah.
Because some butter has more water.
That's possible. I never use the same kind of butter.
Yeah, I usually just use what's on sale.
Exactly.
And local.
Yeah.
Well, I love any pie that has like citrus in it personally. It's so good. I love it.
But very lemony, very creamy. And it's kind of different from like a lemon meringue pie filling, because I feel like the lemon meringue is more almost, this is not usually a nice word, but gelatinous. Like it just has a little bit more stiffness to it. And the chess pie is super creamy and very lightly set because it's only using the eggs as the thickener.
Yeah, it's more like lemon curd than lemon pudding.
Exactly.
I think that crust actually would be really good with a savory pie because it's pretty sturdy. I think it could hold up really well to like gravy and soft, juicy vegetables.
Yeah. I was actually thinking of using the other half because it's made two crusts, but using the other half to do like I want to try a bean-based pot pie.
Oh yeah, bean
So like
pies are a real
make
thing.
kind of a gravy to have the beans in, especially those big Corona beans. Yeah, and then have the
Yeah,
crust
we
on
have some
top.
Coronas that we're not struggling to find something to do with them, but you know,
We have
just
them.
thinking of
It's just two people and a pound of beans is a lot. That's a lot of beans for two people.
Freeze. Yeah, I cook a lot of beans and just freeze them in 1 cup tubs, so I can always have a burrito, or I can always just make soup real quick, and
That's a good idea.
it works really well. And that because I like to cook a whole pound at once in the pressure cooker, it's just so much easier.
I told we have beans on the menu, my husband and I was like, well, we should just cook the whole pack. And he's like, we don't need to. But now I'm like, no, we should because I can just mix them with like scrambled eggs or something in the morning too.
And don't you have a basement freezer?
We do too,
Nice.
It really helps. So we actually, our fridge just died recently. The one, yeah, and so we replaced it with a fancy. It's got the French doors and the little bottom drawer freezer. You don't really realize how much you hoard condiments until you have to empty your fridge completely. And I was like, oh my God. So I had the entire upper rack of my dishwasher was just empty jars, from half like a thing of peach chutney or some like sambal or weird pickles. Or I just save like olive brine sometimes because it's like, this is really flavorful and there's olive oil floating on it. Why would I just, I could put more vegetables in this. Anyways,
This is sounding very familiar. I was going to say.
one of the shelves on our fridge door, like it's busted like 3 or 4 times now just because of the weight of all the condiments shifting. Like, and
It just occasionally falls off, and then
Yeah.
we have to pick up all the condiments.
and there's lots of cursing and
Yeah. All right. So, Heather, could you describe your home cooking style?
oh yeah, I've been cooking for a really long time. I started reading cookbooks such as The Joy of Cooking when I was a child and trying the recipes. My parents were kind of weird about me cooking because we were poor and they didn't want me to like ruin or waste food. I don't think that they thought I was going to take it seriously. I think they probably just assumed I was going to make messes and make mud pies or whatever. So sometimes when they were at work, I would just cook without them around. And I was really interested in recipes that were unfamiliar to me, not just learning how to do stuff that I already, ate. So I started checking out Gourmet Magazine at the library. I would bring home a big bag of magazines and
R.I.P.
copy down the recipes, and enter recipe contests, which I never won any, but fast forward to high school, I became a vegetarian, and my parents made me start buying my own groceries and cooking my own meals because they were gonna like do separate shopping for me. And yeah, thus I got really into stir fries and wanted to get more into cooking food from East Asia and South Asia because it was very vegetarian friendly and it was really affordable. So yeah, my exploration into kind of multicultural approach to cooking came from that period. And also growing up in Portland, like, you go to Thai restaurants, you go to, Japanese places. We have access to so many different cuisines. The thing that I think is unique about my style of cooking is that because I have a background in botany and have studied like organic chemistry, I understand flavors in a slightly different way than just by tasting everything. I kind of understand how, like, if this plant, well, for example, I mentioned in my newsletter this week, hoja santa or Mexican pepper leaf is a member of the pepper family, like, peppercorns. And it smells very root beery, the leaf. But it also has some sort of like undertones that are more a little bit minty and a little bit savory. And it reminded me a lot of perilla leaf, like the big Korean ones, even though they're in a completely different plant family, just because some of the same aromatic compounds are present in both species. It helped me think of like, well, what would happen if I made kimchi out of hoja santa, like the gainip kimchi, which you can eat as regular kimchi, or you can use it as like a salad. A lettuce wrapper for some. So yeah, I'll just kind of start geeking out on things like that. I also have ADHD, and so I spend a lot of time like really deep diving and ruminating and like not spiraling, but like definitely thinking about ingredients and plants and food in a way that's very hyper focused.
Yeah, I saw your photo on Instagram of the Hoja Santa leaves, and I guess I had never seen them in person. I've seen like the dried ones,
Which are they're impressively large when they're dried, but
huge.
those look gigantic.
Yeah, they're big. I found the plant at Las Pañaguitas market. It's a produce stand. It's not really a produce stand. It's bigger than that, but this Latino market in Woodburn, and they will occasionally have potted plants. I bought another herb last year, but it didn't make it over the winter. But yeah, I just bring it in the house during the cold months, and I think technically our zone is just like about the edge of where it can, like how much cold it can handle. So if you keep it in a sheltered place, you can grow it outside. And it's really just an attractive plant, even if you don't cook with it much. It's nice to have.
Awesome. What is the best thing you've made this week?
So I did all the canning. What else did I do? I made a bunch of pickles.
What kind of pickles?
They were just garlicky dills.
The
best kinds. I have been called a pickle savant. And I'm in this, like, I joke, this is very exclusive group text called Pickle Pals. And it's just me, Nevin Mergen, and Andy Bayo, like these two, like, software designer, like, people who also are not culinary professionals. But yeah, we just talk about pickles. I have another group chat with Nevin and his brother about tinned fish. It's called Tiny Fishes. And yeah, it's just...
We're speaking my languages right now.
Dorky group chats.
Is Evan still posting his sardine brunch?
He's not really on Instagram anymore, but yes, that is him. I know. The best thing I made was I got a 2-pound boneless leg of lamb and I rubbed it with all of these, it always makes me laugh to say Caucasian spices, which, is not just salt and pepper. In this case, since we're talking about the Caucasus mountain range, Central Asia. So lots of like blue fenugreek and cumin, coriander, and camelli sunelli, this Georgian spice blend, and and then a lot of winter savory and whole shallots because I needed to use some up. And so I just slow roasted it for 5 or 6 hours until it was falling apart, or when it was like about to, and then I smeared some quince preserves on it to get kind of like, sticky. And then I served it on a gigantic pita. I found this new international market called Best Fresh on 165th. Have you been there yet? It's pretty close to y'all.
Oh, we have driven by it so many times.
It's almost a running joke because we're always on the opposite side of division when we're going by it for some reason or other, and I'm always like, we should go there. And it's happened
Incredible.
I don't know,
like 10 times.
10 times. Yeah.
They have great flatbreads, and some of them are in the freezer. Like they have a lavash that could cover this whole table. I mean,
Nice.
and it's like razor thin. And then they have these big pitas, and so I just shredded the lamb and had some roasted pumpkin from the garden as well, and a little leftover baba ganoush, which doesn't really match, but eggplant is pretty common in Georgian cuisine. So I was like, I can just put a little sumac and some sour or whatever on it, and it'll work. And it worked. It was good.
Well, yeah, isn't eggplant caviar would be a known thing, right? I mean, or is that more of a might be not?
I don't know how many eggplant spreads or dips are used in Georgia, but I know they do like is it badrajani? Is it the one where it's thinly sliced and then you have like a chopped walnut pate and you roll it up, and then and then it's kind of got like a pomegranate molasses type of dressing or drizzle on it. And then it's like they roast the eggplant first though, so it's really nice and chewy and sticky.
That
That
sounds
lamb
delicious.
sounds incredible. That sounds like a really good kind of segue into, more like roast season, soup season, cozy food. Yeah.
Especially with like the pumpkin edition. That's like where I'm going right now. Like, okay, changing my mind from like fresh tomatoes and peppers and getting into the gourds.
Yeah, I think that This time of year is so interesting because I do still see chilies and tomatillos in my garden, and it makes me think of, sunny Mexican food. The tomatoes I'm probably not even going to have any green ones. I think they did not so well this year. But then, yeah, I've got all these like little pumpkins, and then it's so nice and sunny out too. It's like I want to pick summery things still, but roasts and soups and pumpkin are a great way to change your mind about summer, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny. On the way over here, Megan had a plan to do some soup tonight, and I was like, I want to grill something, please.
Yeah, I think we were
So-
probably going to do both grill and soup.
I don't know how that's going to work.
Really?
But yeah, we'll see.
I mean, I wanted to make a cauliflower soup, which is very simple and plain. So I think having some like grilled chicken on the side
Yeah,
is totally
sure.
fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't have to be matchy with the food.
Damn it.
You can also put like smoked and grilled stuff in the soup.
Yeah.
My last question is, what would you say you are known for cooking wise? Like, is there something that you always bring to the potluck or something everyone asks for?
I do think that pickles might be on that list. My friends, Chris and Lauren, got married a couple weeks ago. They'd reached out like a month prior to see if I would be able to provide pickles for their reception. And yeah, I usually bring pickles or some kind of like egg salad. Like one time, sometimes deviled eggs, sometimes just egg salad, like mini sandwiches. And the first time I did that, my husband was like, "What are you doing bringing egg salad to a summer picnic? Like nobody's," and they disappeared in like under 5 minutes.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
but yeah, in retrospect, it does sound kind of crazy to bring. Like, just, the Yellow Jackets didn't even have a chance. Like,
Bless you for bringing deviled eggs. I always want to eat deviled eggs.
me too. They're such a pain to make, but I have so many eggs right now that are they've just been in our garage fridge for, I don't know, weeks.
Because you have chickens.
We have chickens, yes. And we have new, like, young chickens, 3 young girls who just started laying this year. And so I'm getting like 2 dozen eggs a week.
Oh my
gosh.
Wow.
And, we made tamago sandos and just a bunch of I felt like we were in Napoleon Dynamite. Like, we were like, so many eggs. It's like, here's some little hard boiled eggs. Here's some egg salad sandwiches. Here's a little egg in your ramen. Here's, it was so silly. But they are a great way to disappear a bunch of eggs.
Yeah.
I feel like deviled eggs are one of those like love language foods too. Like every time I go visit my mother, she always has deviled eggs ready, like always. And I'm like, I never make these for myself, but I would make these for somebody I really care about.
Yeah.
Or like, like a potluck or friends coming over. I don't know. It's a nice thing.
Does your mom have a deviled egg plate?
You know what? No, they just kind of slide around a little bit. But
It's a great gift
they're
idea.
always her deviled eggs are my favorite. They will always be my favorite. And she has the perfect amount of paprika every single time. Always impressed.
Yeah, that's my grandma. My grandma always makes really good deviled eggs. She has a deviled egg platter
I
that
love
they sit
those.
on, and it's like that bird's egg blue color,
Oh.
and it has like a gold, leaf edge around it.
Oh, that
It's,
sounds beautiful.
like, my favorite piece of dishware. I don't know. It's something. One of these days, I'm like, I don't care about anything else, but I want that deviled egg plate. Heather, where can listeners follow you online if they would like to?
I'm pretty active on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is just at Heather Arndt-Anderson. And you can subscribe to my newsletter. It's more like a column. It's not. It goes a little deeper than a newsletter, I think. But
it does.
opb.org/superabundant. And
It's
it comes
very
every
good.
week
I
on
recommend.
Fridays. Thank you.
So in this segment, we'll discuss our topic. So the topic is pie. Fun fact, there was a bridal edition of Joy of Cooking. It was the 1975 edition.
That's the one my mom has. That's
Really?
the one I grew up cooking from. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
It came in a special box for gifting.
I saw it once. I saw one copy once. I haven't seen it since.
Does your dad have it?
It might be buried in a box.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to find it.
I would like to find it. It's a daunting collection of boxes that he has amassed. Yes, but someday.
Yeah, the lemon meringue pie is such an iconic one. We didn't want to fuss with it too much for the 2019 edition, but we did make one kind of major-ish change, which is that instead of calling for just a standard meringue, we use an Italian meringue. And so with Italian meringue, you make a sugar syrup and you heat it up to a specific temperature. You drizzle it into your egg whites as they're being beaten in your mixer. And basically what that does is it kind of cooks the meringue and stabilizes it so that when you put it on top of the pie, well, first of all, it's already cooked, so you don't have to worry about putting it back in the oven, toasting it not being cooked enough or too cooked. All you have to do is brown it. And we usually use a torch, but you could use the broiler. So it just kind of gives you a little more control over how brown it's getting. And it always has this really nice marshmallowy, smooth texture that I really love.
It doesn't weep either.
Exactly.
That's the thing about meringue pies. It's tragic. Is
Yeah.
they just like ooze their sad little tears all over the pie.
And then the meringue will separate, and there will be this like slippery layer underneath.
it's really
sometimes.
unpleasant.
Yeah, it's not the best.
Yeah, you're sliding it onto the table, and the meringue just goes a little bit further. Yeah. Oh, that's 238 to 240 degrees on the syrup.
I was right.
Yeah.
238.
So-
It's over. Yeah.
I knew in my heart.
And that also makes it safe for people who have compromised immune systems, right? So
Exactly.
not eat raw eggs.
Yeah, that is a nice bonus.
I feel like this is the second time you both have mentioned having a blowtorch, though. In different, like, is that something that I should be purchasing? Like, it sounds like it actually would be pretty convenient to have.
I use it for lighting coals. I use it for charring chilies.
That's, yeah, I was thinking chilies. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like, anything bruleed,
Yeah.
meringues. We also use it. We have a wood burning fireplace,
Yeah.
which you do too, right?
Now we do, yeah.
We also use it to start fires in the
All
fireplace.
right, I think I'm going to get a
because
It's really-
blowtorch.
it's cheating, but it's really nice.
It's especially shameful for me because my father, growing up, would challenge me to he's really big into primitive skills like
Ron Swanson.
Yes. 100%.
like do the kindling just so and make like little shavings so that you can light a fire with one match.
I could
And
light up. I know. I totally think of dads like that when I ever stick the landing on
Yes.
the one match. But no, blowtorches are just so much easier though.
Yeah, no, we
And
just don't have.
don't get the little puny culinary, quote unquote culinary torch. Get
Okay.
like what is it, Burnzomatic?
It's called a Burnzomatic.
Yeah, I feel like I need your exact recommendation.
Yeah, with a
That's
little
a
green
TS
propane.
8000.
Okay.
Yeah. I have one. I have a little wimpy culinary one that I got as a wedding gift, and it you have to shove the butane, and it only holds enough to do one creme brulee. Yeah, it's so pathetic.
I just want to light my fire.
Yeah.
No, let's go for it. I don't know. My Eagle Scout husband is going to be like, we're not using kindling. And I'm like, no, this is going to be so fun.
It sounds really awesome too. It sounds like you really mean business when you turn that thing on.
I love it.
I would be remiss at this point to not recommend that if you do get the Burnzomatic for culinary purposes, that it would behoove you to get the Searsol, an attachment for. I think that Dave Arnold would say that it turns the
Dave Arnold.
Dave Arnold is a food expert, entrepreneur, podcaster, of course, legendary podcaster. But yeah, turns the torch into basically a little miniature salamander. So it disperses the flame of the Burnzomatic, and so it just creates a wider, kind of heat that kind of diffuses it a little bit, but it allows you to cover a wider area. But yeah,
It's great for toasting cheese.
very good, very good
Toast
for
and
cheese toasties.
I'm in.
One thing I love, I don't hate it, but one thing that's hard about pie, but I also love about pie is that pie just takes time.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to set aside the time to do it. You can't be rushed. I feel like whenever I'm rushed, that's when I start to have problems. So you really have to say, okay, this afternoon is just about pie and not be in a hurry, which is hard because I think we're so much in the mindset of I have to get dinner on the table in 30 minutes. You can't do that with pie. You have to have a different sort of mindset.
Well, and if you are in that situation, there's no shame in getting a store-bought
Oh, sure.
crust, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Or
I
do
have
like a crumb.
A couple of shortcuts that make homemade, like from scratch, basic flaky from whatever page of Joy of Cooking. I still use that recipe. I have it written on a little index card taped in my cupboard where I keep the flour and stuff. But I use the food processor to mix the dough, so I don't have to worry about melting the butter with my hands or being too slow. And then when I wrap at the disc, I just put it in the freezer for 15 or 20 minutes instead of fridge for an hour. And that really like saves a lot of time. And then
Yeah.
you just, beat it with your pin to kind of, loosen it up a little bit. But it usually works pretty well.
Nice. Yeah, that definitely cuts down on a lot of time if you can shorten that fridge time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a lot of information about gluten-free pie crusts in Joy. However, we do have several alternative crusts that you can use instead of like a flour-based crust. So there's a meringue crust, which is delicious. You can't fill it until you're ready to eat because it will just kind of melt. But it's really good for like if you want to make a fruit pie. I feel like the meringue is delicious. And then there's a crumb crust which you can make with gluten-free cookies. And then there's a nut crust which is just nuts and sugar and butter, and a coconut crust and a cornflake crust, which you have to make sure you're getting the gluten-free cornflakes, but there are gluten-free cornflakes that you can use. So there are several options. I would say I haven't done a ton of gluten-free baking, but I rely, when I do it, I use a flour blend that you just buy rather than buying like 6 different flours and mixing them together, because that always drove me a little bit wild.
Yeah, I think we briefly thought about, calling for special blends in the last edition, and it was just like, yeah, this is probably a bridge too far for most people. And there's like all of these ready-made products that are coming out that are just like one-to-one substitutions.
Yeah.
On the meringue pie shell, could you do like a chocolate layer? Do you think that would moisture-proof it?
I mean, it would help if you brushed on some melted chocolate. I don't know. I haven't tried it.
But now
That was one of
sounds
the.
good.
Yeah, that was definitely like one of the tips that was offered in the 1997 edition. I don't know if we carried that one over, but because I think it seemed like it was of limited use, just to pie flavors that chocolate would go well with. But
I mean, that immediately, I'm thinking about the meringue brushed with chocolate and then strawberries and maybe whipped cream too.
Sliced oranges.
Sounds so
Yeah.
good.
You can also do a savory gluten-free pie crust by using shredded potato and egg.
Oh,
And you barbecue that. Yeah, that's an old like moosewood hippie
Nice.
vegetarian. Like then
Love
she's
it.
gonna put like 2 pounds of cheese in that pie, but
Yeah.
at least the crust is gluten-free.
Do you do much gluten-free baking?
I do as little as I possibly can while I can still tolerate gluten. Yeah, I don't have to avoid gluten, but I do make foods that are incidentally gluten-free just because Mexican cooking uses more corn and, using more rice than flour in some Asian dishes. I bet you could make a cool crust with like beans too, if you or like lentils, like press them in and and bake it to be like a crispy little kind of crackery crust. That would be kinda good.
maybe sticky rice, would that work?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe.
oh gosh, that'd be so
Wrap
good.
things in sticky rice.
Like a mango pie sticky rice
with
situation.
the-
Oh
That
god.
sounds so good.
Coconut sticky rice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Well, there are those new Trader Joe's snacks that are like mango sticky rice bites, and it's like crispy sticky rice with little bits of dried mango embedded in it, and it's very good. I mean, I like that direction though. I think that might be worth tring.
I think you should test it out and let
Okay.
me try
Yeah.
it.
Well, I guess we'll have this podcast as a record of what we should be doing. I'll write it down later.
I'll send you a text. Don't worry. I'll be like, hey John, remember, make us that pie.
Okay.
I was doing a little bit of digging into gluten-free pie crusts, and a lot of recipes that I came across use egg. So in addition to, since you don't have the gluten to help bind things, I think adding an egg is a really good idea to just, because I think, the nice thing about gluten-free pie crust is you're never going to overwork it. On the other hand, it might be very difficult to roll out or get shape in any way. So I think having an egg would be a plus. And then probably rolling out the dough between sheets of parchment paper instead of trying to just do it on a surface, so you can easily like plop it into the pie dish.
I wonder if you can use a little bit of xanthan gum too to help kind of stabilize
Yeah.
it, just keep it more like gelled.
And some of those flour blends do contain xanthan gum already, and that's a really good idea.
If you have a topic, ingredient, or joy story to share, call our hotline at 503-395-8858. Leave us a message, or you can send us a text. We would love to hear from you. Next week's topic comes from our caller.
Hi, this is Jillian, and this message is for the Joy of Cooking podcast. I am calling with a cooking conundrum. I need help because I had a party last weekend, and I have 3 cups of sour cream left over. Can you give me ideas to use up 3 cups of sour cream in any kind of recipes over the next week? Thank you.
So next week, we'll answer Jillian's question and talk about party appetizers. So we're talking about what we want to try, what we're excited about, and what will inspire us to keep the joy alive this coming week. So, like, what are we thinking? What are folks making this week or planning for or hoping to eat this week?
My meal tracker because of this.
I'm going to make either baked apple cider donuts or apple fritters or apple dumplings. It's something with apples for this week's recipe, but I can't decide if I want to do the old school, like a baked apple with like the pastry shell on the outside, or if I want to do more like the rustic donut type with like just chunks of apples in it. But yeah, something appley and desserty and like covered in cinnamon sugar.
Yes.
It's definitely on the menu.
That's a good conundrum. The Joy of Cooking apple dumpling recipe is very good. It has like the orangey syrup that you pour over, and it gets concentrated. It's delicious.
It's a favorite.
Yeah.
Okay.
We felt like, I remember when we were sitting down to test that one, we're like, oh, this is going to be stodgy or just like old school and kind of frumpy. And it's not like a looker, but it's
But it
absolutely
tastes
delicious.
so good. Yeah.
I'll probably be doing that. I mean, we have to make up a batch of smoked apple butter. So speaking of like
Apples.
combining grilling and more fall type pursuits. Yeah.
I saw that we have possibly 3 cloudy days.
Ooh.
And I'm a cloudy day kind of girl. I know. I love a cloudy day. I love an excuse. This sounds so basic, but I love a soup. So I'm going to do a roasted poblano corn chowder this week because I still kind of want to honor summer. And also I'm into soup. I'm ready for soup. So
Agreed.
it's time.
Yes.
I want to make that too.
I'm just going to make it up. I'm not even going to like base it off of anything. I just think it's going to be a night where it's a little cloudy and I'm going to turn on music that I like and just figure it out and just have fun with it.
Great.
Yeah.
I had an idea recently, speaking of that soup that you mentioned, to try to make a gnocchi type dumpling out of masa that you can like simmer in a soup or
yeah.
steam first. So you'd have like these little chewy pillows of like tamales basically in your soup.
I feel like
Sounds so good.
there's a name for those, and I'm not remembering what it is now. But they're like little round masa dumplings, and they have like you stick your finger in to make a little indentation in the middle.
I have seen that.
They're
That's
really good.
yeah, it's like a little belly button, I think is like the name.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's probably kind of like polenta. You know, you can use that too. But yum, soups.
Thanks so much for joining us, Heather. It was super fun to talk about food with you. You're one of my favorite food people because I feel like you're always doing something totally different, or just like, oh, I never thought of that. I didn't know you could do that. So like I love just talking about food with you.
Thanks. Yeah, I love talking about food with you too.
Thanks for listening to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. Follow us on Instagram at The Joy of Cooking. Stay tuned for next week where we will tackle party appetizers. Call in with questions, hopes, history, or where you find joy in the kitchen. Our number is 503-395-8858. That's 503-395-8858.
And we, of course, could not do this without our fantastic team at the Joy of Creation Production House. Thank you to Kayleen Veach, our production coordinator, Haley Bowers, our audio engineer, and Sarah Marshall, our producer.